the threat Iran poses to the stability of the region is immense. If Iran were to acquire nuclear weapons capability, it would destabilize the region very, very badly, and they continue to support groups of terrorism. I think regime change in Tehran would immediately make me significantly more optimistic about the whole of the region.
For a government to emerge in Iran that can deal with itself as a nation rather than as a cause, and if then we have a different situation, then we may conclude that we must work for regime change in Iran from the outside.
I think it speaks of a new era, and it speaks of a new generation, a generation that demands to be heard, a generation that can no longer take no for an answer, a generation that expects to have every right in freedom and participation, and of course opportunities. And as such, I think it is time for the world to recognize that if we had eras where leaders would make decisions or foreign powers would make decisions, isn't it about time that we let the people make the decisions?
What do we say to the reform movement in Iran?
I think the reform movement in Iran is learning one hell of a lot from what's happened in Tunisia and Egypt and Libya and Syria.
Even though Iran is not an Arab country, the Arab Spring could spread to...
Absolutely.
See evidence of that?
I think we saw some evidence of that in the last election in Iran, that there was a movement within Iran that raised those very same concerns that we're seeing elsewhere. And I think in many ways it's a matter of time before that kind of change and reform and revolution occurs in Iran as well.
As part of what I sort of call for in the process of change, which is based on nonviolent civil disobedience, has to take into consideration the crucial role that coercive forces can play in that transition. The bottom line is they need to find survival beyond this regime, and the fact that society will accept them back into their fold. That can easily be placed in terms of giving them those assurances and guarantees, because we're not only talking about change of regime, we're talking about a transition a la South Africa, where you also deal with a general amnesty and national reconciliation.
Hear the